And good morning, 11:30 on Sunday morning, back talking about Feng Shui. And normally we have Brooke here. Looks like she might have had a busy weekend and isn't here today. But anyway, I thought I'd just go over a few things as kind of a little review. We've been talking about Dr. SantoPietro's book, Feng Shui and Health, and how you can moderate and balance your environment in order to balance your life, success, and health. And coincidentally, this weekend, I'm on the mailing list for Dr. Mao out in Santa Barbara, California. And he sends several little items every week from things from his book and his classes. And this week he sent a little article about Feng Shui remedies for your home. And he introduces the idea of Chinese astrology influences harmony within the home. And you can think, he says, you can think of your home as a hidden treasure that affects your life. And you allow your home to reflect the lifestyle you want to create for yourself. And the idea is to have the flow of chi energy flowing as it runs in a balanced way, so that it's neither too swift or too slow and not interrupted. And then he has some simple, what he calls simple corrections to minimize negativity that might be affecting different aspects of your life. And so he gives some suggestions on how you can, what he says, immediately connect with yourself and inspire a higher level of energetic flow. And so he talks about a connection, the concept of connection, that your home is an extension of yourself. It's important to connect to your space so that you understand where you are living and, more importantly, how you're living. And one of the big beginning issues in Feng Shui is clutter. Cluttered house tangled the flow of energy and created a stagnant environment, he says. So he says one of the simple things to do, which is simpler said than done sometimes, is to donate unused items regularly. Keep rooms neat and tidy in order to encourage a fresh, healthy flow of energy and a lively, stimulating home. So, of course, many of us have that. In the traditional Feng Shui, you can use a little map, a little chart of your house or your room or your yard or your neighborhood, for that matter. And the idea is each direction, like north, south, east, west, northwest, northeast, has some significance. So, for example, if you find clutter on the east side of your room or your house, that would have significance in parts of your life. So you go around the different areas of your house or room and try to arrange those to be most beneficial to balance in your life. The doorway is usually considered as the south wall or the south of your room or house. So Dr. Mouse talks about the front door. The entrance to your home is very important in Feng Shui. If a road or path leads directly to the front door, trouble can come right in. So he says the way you avoid that problem is to plant shrubs along the pathway in order to soften the impact of a straight line to the door. And a lot of these come from a practical matter, especially in centuries past. Or say your house was right at the end of a busy road. Danger of a horse cart or somebody coming right into your house because your house is at the end of the road. So as a practical matter, that could be a kind of a dangerous situation. So in my neighborhood, our houses are built around a little circle in our community. And so you enter the neighborhood roadway that leads to the circle. Well, there is one house right at the end of that roadway before you turn the circle. So in traditional Feng Shui, you would have to do some moderating of that doorway or that yard to avoid that real danger of a car coming up into your front yard, or the idea of energy flowing too quickly into your yard or your house. So as Dr. Mao points out, what you could do is plant shrubs along that pathway leading to your doorway. And in fact, the house in my neighborhood, they have a lot of shrubs around their sidewalk leading to the doorway and around the porch and doorway itself. So they have, in fact, consciously or unconsciously moderated that direct path right into the front door. Okay, the next place to balance, Dr. Mao mentions the entry hall, and he says it should be spacious and bright so that energy can flow easily. Now, again, going back hundreds or not thousands of years ago, you would entryway to your house to be bright as opposed to dark, and spacious as opposed to small. Because after all, your family and yourself would be entering that entrance regularly, and just for a practical safety matter, you wouldn't want it to be dark, because then you could trip over something or not find your way to something. And same thing with guests. You wouldn't want it dark for guests entering your house for the first time. So it's kind of an obvious thing. You want it to be as spacious and as bright as possible. And he says, if your hallway is small or dark, you can moderate that by using bright lighting and decorations, and install mirrors to reflect as much light as possible. And kind of common sense, people do use mirrors, in fact, for that way, to kind of lighten up a dark area of a wall or of a room. And he says the entry ceiling should be light, as dark ceilings signify a stormy sky. So yeah, I guess kind of psychologically, if you enter a house or your own house, you would want something that's not gloomy, like a dark would kind of remind you of a dark sky. So just psychologically, it'd be nice to have a light ceiling, he says. Okay, and then he moves on to doorways in general. Keep doorways clear to allow the energy to flow smoothly. Same thing, just for a safety practice. You don't want a bunch of stuff cluttering the doorway that somebody, yourself or family or guests, could trip over. These windows should be lightly dressed, as opposed to having dark, heavy coverings, to let some light in. On the other hand, he says if you feel the windows are too open, you can place plants on the windowsills to prevent the energy from leaving the room too quickly. So just as the small windows or heavily covered windows might not be good. Window area might be equally as not as convenient or not as balanced. So he says place plants around the windowsills. Okay, and then he talks about accents. The accents in your home are equally important. Consider the color and fabric choice for your bedding, for example. Clear shelves ensure the accents you choose represent powerful influences in your life, and display artwork, he says, that reflects how you envision your future to be. So again, it's kind of like decluttering, choosing colors and fabrics that would be beneficial. In the traditional charts or maps of Feng Shui, they do give for different areas of the room or house the most beneficial colors and kind of design hints as well. And you can Google a Feng Shui chart or Feng Shui map and see how traditionally the 8 different areas of your room or 8 different directions have different hints to try to follow. Now, they're not all like magical things that if you don't do them, you're going to be doomed forever. They're just kind of hints, and you do your best to arrange your environment around those ideas. And then finally, Dr. Mao talks about plants. They can be used to soften sharp corners and absorb negative energy. And we all know from just traditional and TV shows that plants are always recommended. And he says, lush, well-loved plants attune a higher level of energy. Bushy plants with rounded leaves help slow the flow of energy, and plants with pointed leaves are useful for speeding it up. So presumably you had like some corner that was kind of like a dead zone or something, you could use a bushy plant with rounded leaves to help smooth out that particular corner. Or say you had say there's a door or an entrance where there's a lot of energy that can just flow right through that entranceway. You could well, I take that back. That would be the bushy plant. On the other hand, if you had something where you wanted to speed up the energy, like a quiet area, you would use the plants with pointed leaves. I kind of got that backwards. And he says, here's a surprise, avoid cut flowers because they no longer can contain the energy, which is kind of an unusual thing. I guess a surprise, like he points out, because normally we think, oh, cut flowers would be great, so we'll go to the florist every day and get cut flowers. But he's suggesting that use live plants, and that'd be more beneficial. So anyway, that's just some hints from in one of his weekly little messages he sends out, and you can join his little mailing list, and several of them. Just Google Dr. Mao, M-A-O, out in California, and he's a doctor of Chinese medicine and acupuncture. His father is Master Ni, who is 99 years old, who I followed 30 some years ago when he first came to Miami for a talk. And so Dr. Mao Shing Ni and his brother have a practice out in Santa Barbara, California, and do classes and seminars. And like I say, just Google and you can sign up for one of his one or more of his mailings through the week. And he gets some pretty good advice. And of course, if you were in California, you could sign up for some of his courses. And he's pretty well known. You've probably seen him on some TV shows, national shows. Anyway, so we're talking today, just kind of giving a little brief rundown Feng Shui, the idea of arranging your environment to produce balanced effects in your life. And primarily it's just a matter of decluttering your, have a metaphor for decluttering your life, keeping things simple, slowing things down. And in that process, your career, your finances, your relationship health, as well as your physical, mental, spiritual health should improve. Just through the matter of slowing down, simplifying, and getting things in order. And things that are in disorder can be a reflection of your current situation or a kind of a predictor of what may come. So not only could we have gone through some trauma in the past, which causes us to not pay attention to our own environment, the continuation of that disorder may well predict further disorder. So just literally cleaning your closet, cleaning your room, cleaning your yard, cleaning your neighborhood, your city, your worth. Can bring some beneficial results. And of course, it's always easier said than done because we don't always want to prioritize cleaning up. I figure we've got more important things to do. I think in the coming weeks we might get into the idea of the compassion and empathy, and do some little book reviews on that idea. As all of us may have noticed in the last week, there's been a bit of anxiety over our national news, and if not the world. So we kind of have half the people thinking one way is best, another half thinks another way is best. And in many cases, either side doesn't want to listen to the other side's point of view. And each side may just figure the other side is wrong and their side's right. And of course, there's never always a strict right and wrong. There's always a difference of opinion. So that's where the idea of empathy and compassion comes in, sympathy as well. I kind of define sympathy as somebody in distress or something in distress. You reflect back in your mind and life to, if you've been in that situation. So say you see a child crying on the step or something. So you can reflect back and think, well, let me see, when I was a child, I might have cried because I cut my finger or I fell off my bicycle. So you would sympathize, thinking that that child might well have fallen off his bicycle or cut his finger. But you don't really know. You just kind of guessing at this point, but you know you've had that experience before, so you have sympathy for the child's discomfort. Then going into empathy. Empathy is when you try to find out a little more precisely what the discomfort might be, and actually can identify with it more. You can feel into what the child is feeling. So you might get closer to the child and observe, well, in fact, he did cut his finger. So now you know that the child cut his finger, he's crying, so there's some discomfort, some pain, and you can actually feel it. You start feeling, oh my goodness, I can feel that pain in my finger as well, even though I didn't cut my finger. So now you know that you feel the real pain. You're feeling what that child feels. And so that would be the empathy, that you feel what the child is feeling because you have looked into the matter. You might have asked him a question. Oh, did you cut yourself or did you fall down? So you're going into what is really going on to cause that discomfort or pain. Right? Empathy is when you know, you feel the feeling and you're pretty sure you know what it is because you've felt the real pain of the other person or the situation. Then empathy goes a little further because you actually do something about it. All right, now, sometimes there's little you can do physically because you might be away from the situation physically, or you can't get to the immediate area of the child, for example. In a sense, send prayers or send thoughts to the child of healing or easing the pain, whatever. But if you can get closer, of course, then you can do something. You could, touch the child's hand, you can pat him on the shoulder, hug the child, talk to the child. So that would be the empathy. So you recognize the real discomfort or pain the situation has or the person has. You do something about it. So there's an active activity. There's an activity going on. If you're physically close, you can physically do something, talk, touch. And if you're not, at least you can think, meditate on it, and certainly you felt the pain anyway. You know the discomfort. You know what it is, and then you send some thoughts of healing or good wishes out, which is kind of philosophical idea, but there is some truth that your thoughts or prayers can actually do something. even mental or spiritual. So anyway, so we have the sympathy, that you see something, you can identify something in your past. So it might be that particular thing. You might have cut his finger, might have fallen off a bike, but you're not real sure. Compassion, you question more to see what's going on, and then you feel into what the person is really feeling. Yes, he in fact cut his finger. Oh, I can feel the pain in my finger. And then empathy is where you feel it, and then you do something about it. So that's the three ideas that we might get into in future things. And then if you think about it, see, not only does it work between person to person, animal, person to animal, or whatever, any living thing, or even inanimate thing in a real sense, but can expand out from the individual to the family, which were pretty easy to see how to do that. Extend out to the neighborhood, the neighbors, which gets a little more difficult. Extend out to your community, which is even a little more difficult. Extend out to the state, so, or the world, for that matter. So that's where it becomes more difficult, because we're used to being empathetic and compassionate to our family, with not too much trouble usually. But once it gets past the family, it gets a little more difficult, because we're not used to that, because we're all biologically tribal or family oriented and somewhat tribal. Once it gets outside the tribe, outside of our community, it gets a little tougher. So that's where the little training in recognizing the difference between sympathy, compassion, and empathy happens. Because empathy, we not only understand the people outside of our tribe, but we actually do something to alleviate the pain. Instead of what we often do is create more discomfort. So anyway, empathy, sympathy, and compassion. All right. So anyway, this is Don Browne from LaBelle, Florida, talking about things of balance in your life. And we're here about 11:30 every Sunday morning. So you can subscribe to the YouTube channel to be notified. You can make some comments. And we'll see you next week at this very place.